Welcome back to Creepcast. Today we're doing something very unusual. I've got to say it's in slight protest, but I think it's for the good of mankind. We're diving into SCP. What does SCP stand for, Isaiah?
It stands for Secure, Contain, and Protect. The SCP Foundation, as many of you are probably aware, is a foundation that is concerned with understanding, securing, containing, and protecting the public from anomalous entities as they occur in the wild. So, I love SCP stuff. I've talked about it a lot on the channel. I'm a big fan. Hunter, however, is not.
I gotta say, I need to be won over.
Okay. I have no idea how you like online horror and stuff like that, and you don't like.
There are some.
SCP
Don't get me
stuff.
wrong. I have. If you've seen my channel at all, I've done a couple SCP stuff. It's just the redundancy of having to do the whole redacted thing. The format, after a while, to me, it got a bit draining. But there's still like Infinite IKEA. I thought was a cool idea, or Cousin Johnny, that kind of stuff. I like that. I love that. I love the ideas, but sometimes just the formatting. But I'm hoping that you've told me about SCP-3000. I think that if there was a way to get us into SCP, I think this would be the one.
Yeah, I like SCPs a lot just because I think they're so much fun. I think it's cool to have like this, like all your world buildings established going in. Like when you start an SCP article, you know, like the framework that everything sets in. So it gives writers a lot of leeway to do really weird stuff. Especially like when you're really into the SCPs, you will have these, I guess, like a late stage stories where you have characters and doctors from other stories appearing over in this one and how they build off each other and react. It's like a non-cringe cinematic universe.
Sure. I mean, the idea of making it a cohesive place for people to collaborate and like cross-pollinate, I know this is a meme, but it is very Lovecraftian in the way that those guys also were able to contribute to like the Cthulhu mythos and like the Necronomicon mythos. You know what I mean?
It's the same idea.
Exactly. And I think that's sick. And especially to have it be something where it's like some kind of agency that's documenting things and everyone who is creatively writing is... I like in creative scenarios when people are put in a box in a way. And to have it be in a box where it's like, well, it needs to be in a document style. Like it needs to feel like it's a file in this agency. It isn't just creepypasta, but it's creepypasta in a new kind of structure. Like
there's like a framework around it.
The same way I guess No Sleep is, it needs to feel like an anonymous.
It has to feel like, like how did someone get this on the board? Why did someone post this?
And there's a lot of good ideas. I'm just saying that when I was going through, it was pulling teeth. But I will say, maybe with someone here, I'll find. I'm looking forward to it.
Right? Yeah. There is a lot of SCPs that I'll agree. It's like with creepypastas. I mean, like how has every No Sleep story we read been perfect? Right?
It's not. You know what? No, but I think it's if you're reading it with a friend, totally different experience than trying to read it on your own and take it and and have fun with it.
Yeah, I agree. And also, like, I hear what you're saying with a lot of the SCP stuff. A lot of them will over-rely on the redacted, where it'll be like, oh, the thing is redacted. You do redacted, and then you get redacted. And that does get annoying. But there are some people who use the format for, like, good storytelling. Want to take a quick break from the episode to thank today's sponsor, ZocDoc. I don't go to the doctor as much as I should, and if you are spending this much of your time listening to a podcast about fictional monsters, then you probably don't either. But really, I can't blame you, because everything from booking appointments to insurance to finding out what's wrong with you can be pretty scary. But that's where today's sponsor, ZocDoc, is here to help. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors. Choose the right ones for your needs and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty. That's everything from mental health to dental health, eye care to skin care, and much more. Most of us won't go to a restaurant without checking out the online reviews first, so why don't we take something like healthcare just as seriously? You can filter for doctors based on their rating, if they take your insurance, if they're nearby. And because of that, it's super easy to find a doctor that suits your needs. Plus, ZocDoc appointments happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking, and you can even score same-day appointments. You don't want to admit it, but you should probably see a doctor. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/Creepcast to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. Again, that is ZocDoc.com/Creepcast, ZocDoc.com/Creepcast to get in on this incredible offer today. Thank you all so much to ZocDoc for sponsoring the show. It really does mean the most. And we are back to the episode. So I was racking my head about what to basically try to reintroduce Hunter to SCP was for like a narrative piece. And one of my personal favorites is SCP-3000. So that's the one we're going to look at today. A lot of you guys are probably familiar with it. I'm certainly familiar with it. I think it wasn't one of the first SCPs I read, but I remember being in high school. I think I wrote a class assignment based on this SCP.
This is all like deep sea, like this is oceanic horror, basically, right?
SCP-3000 is, yes.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of ocean SCPs. 3000's probably the most famous. I can't think of one that's more prominent than it. SCP-3000 normally gets considered one of the big dogs, like along with ones like SCP-49, SCP-106, stuff like that.
Yeah, 49 was the well, right?
49, unless I've got it way off.
I'm thinking of SCP-049-JP. It's like a Japanese one.
Oh, yeah. SCP-49 is the Plague Doctor, yeah.
Okay, so I think that there was SCP-49-JP, if I'm wrong, but it was interesting. It's like you go into a well and you basically see like a faceless cat or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but all I know is I've only ever read the faceless cat one. There was a Japanese one. Infinite IKEA, Cousin Johnny, and the Flesh That Hates, I think was one.
What do you think of the Flesh That Hates?
Really liked it.
Yeah, I like it. Wait, those are the only ones you've read?
Well, and the one that broke me was I'm at the center of everything.
Oh, yeah.
That one I was like,
a bunch of people like that. I'm not a big fan of that one. Oh, then you haven't. Do you know 106, the old man, the femur breaker?
I haven't. I was such a petty bitch about all of it that I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore.
You don't know the femur breaker?
No. I imagine that's why I still think I'm open to the idea of diving into the SCP stuff.
There isn't really a narrative around this one.
Just save it for me.
Well, I'm not giving anything away here. It is SCP-106 is a creature that looks like this. He's called the Old Man, and he's covered in like this black goo.
Oh, that's cool.
And he phases through walls to get from one location to the other.
That's fine.
And the whole thing is he wants to cause pain. Like, he wants to make people like be in as much torment as possible. So if he ever escapes containment, the way you bring him back is you have to put someone through extreme pain. So the Foundation has something called the Femur Breaker, which is a machine they put D-Class into inside a containment cell. And like a box with a stick holding it up, they shatter people's femurs in a machine so that he gets attracted back, and then they catch him in there. Yeah. That's how you catch him anytime he gets out. Yeah.
The which I think is important to know before we dive into this too, that there's going to be a lot of stuff of, if you're not familiar with SCPs, which if you're clicked on this video you probably are, but just for redundancy's sake for audio listeners as well, SCPs have stuff like different classes, different threats for these monsters, right? You're going to hear stuff to like D-class people, like the way that they use subject matters to go in and deal with these monsters. Like D-class, I'm pretty sure, is supposed to be like prisoners or like
people who can disappear and society won't notice.
Yeah. So there's all these different things that you'll see. So if we come across one, we'll try to explain. But just know that it's an organization that classifies how serious a threat is, and like the people who are involved, or like the pawns that they use to kind of take over things, also have a class as well.
Do you know the object classes?
I just know, if I saw him again, I know Keter and that kind of stuff. I feel like almost every single one I read was a Keter class.
Yeah, so the big three are Safe, Euclid, and Keter. Keter, either way.
Oh, Euclid, Cousin Johnny was a Euclid then.
So Safe, a lot of people think object classes is danger level. It's not. Object class is how hard it is to contain it.
Right.
Which normally those two things go hand in hand. But sometimes there's something, like there's one SCP, I can't remember which one it was, but it's just like a guy who follows you and doesn't do anything. But there's zero way to contain him. So that's like a Keter class, but he's not dangerous. It's just like annoying, if anything. So safe is, the rule of thumb is, if you can put it in a box and nothing happens, it's safe. Maybe when you get it out, it blows up the world. But if you can put it in a box and nothing happens, it's safe. If you can put it in a box and you have to do regular maintenance, but there is a way to keep it in there, that's Euclid. And if you can put it in a box and it requires around-the-clock care, maybe that box will still break regardless of how hard you try, that's Keter.
Yeah, so that makes sense because I know Euclid, Cousin Johnny was Euclid, which was it has some ways of controlling it.
There's like a procedure you have to follow.
And then like the Japanese one that I read, I can't remember the name, but it's basically the well. It's as long as you don't look in the well, you're fine.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the safe.
That
class
would be
where
safe.
It's just like don't. Yeah. And then Keter class is just like all hell's breaking loose.
You have to constantly do something, and even then it may only be temporary.
Flesh that hates. That's a Keter.
That's a Keter class because good luck containing it. I think today's class, the SCP itself is probably Keter, but I think it's called a Thaumiel, if I remember right. Yeah, it's a Thaumiel class. So Thaumiel's one of the weird ones. Okay, so remember the whole thing about safe. It's all around like what you can do with the box, right? Mm-hmm. Safe is if you put it in a box, nothing happens. Keter, like the box takes a lot of maintenance. Sure. Thaumiel is the SCP itself is the box. It is an SCP that is used for other means, basically.
Oh, interesting. Almost like they use its power to do something else.
Yes. Yeah. So that's Thaumiel. And then Apollyon, which like showed up in like one story, then everyone used it because it was like cool or edgy. Apollyon is there is no box. It is an entity that by its very definition, you're not like there's one, I think it was an O1 proposal, which that's a whole nother can of worms, but there was one that was like this god from another dimension that was going to destroy the world. And it was just like inevitable. It's just a matter of waiting for when the god decides to show up. That's Apollyon because you're not containing God from another dimension.
It's kind of stupid to say, but you know, listening to all this stuff and listening and like just kind of talking about SCP, it feels like the people who did Cabin in the Woods movie. It feels like that was had to be a direct inspiration of like the organization there and having like the old god come and all these different devices that you play in. You know what I mean?
So when I was a kid, I remember looking up, is there any SCP movies? This was before like Steven
was that one of them?
Made theirs. Everyone would just clip Cabin in the Woods and be like SCP film. And as a kid, I thought it was real. I mean, I was like,
in a way though, it's so true. I will say, I guess, since this is our first SCP, I know we're kind of hearkening, this is kind of a long intro to get to the story, but in terms of internet spaces, because usually we've done No Sleep and we've done like one Twitter ARG, usually they're in the space of, I would say, anywhere from 2011 to 2017, were the peak years. Where does SCP fall into that time frame of when it was popular? Because I do remember, even though I wasn't a part of that culture, I do remember being online back then and seeing some semblance of it because I knew it was pretty big at a point.
I would say people are going to disagree with me, but if I had to give it a peak, it would probably be, because I think when I was in high school, like sophomore year was when it was like killing it. So that was like 2014 era.
Okay.
2014, 2015.
So the Creepypasta and the SCP thing, they were just kind of in tandem.
They were right around the same time. I feel like Creepypasta was like a smidge later. I'm sorry, other way around. I feel like SCP was a smidge more recent.
Well, it makes sense because I'm thinking that the success of Creepypasta helped
contributed to SCP. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. You had your early Creepypastas, and then it like really Slender Man was like the first one of the first big ones.
The big thing.
And then you had Creepypastas kick up for a while, and then SCP was kind of like, there'd typically be more, because we've read a bunch of Creepypastas. They're normally all over the place. SCPs would tend to be a bit more like, I don't want to say high level, but there was more going on in a lot of the stories than most creepypastas. So I think as the audience got older, we kind of gravitated towards that. So yeah, I think SCPs definitely came like being built off of creepypasta culture.
From what I haven't read a lot, but one thing I've noticed too is everything seems to be a lot more logistical, or they try to really make things like have some kind of sense or purpose, even if the power of the monster or like the threat of the monster is nonsensical. There's some kind of, just to fit that parameter of having like a government document on it, versus a creepypasta can just be so, I wrote
whatever
this in
you
5
want, yeah.
minutes, you know, or whatever kind of thing. So, and I think that it's important for this show to have more stuff outside of this. So I'm hoping that this SCP episode maybe gets people stoked and we can keep diving.
Yeah,
I would love to.
I hope you don't hate it. Pretty much.
No, I mean, I like I said, I'm open. I hope it does well to where we could explore. Like, because I would love to read Cousin Johnny again. It's super fun. So stupid.
Cousin Johnny's a fun one,
and like just weird and creepy in its own right. So I say, without further ado, let's start getting.
Let's get into it. So let's start with SCP-3000. So we'll do this like it's a Volgun video. So SCP-3000 Object class Thaumiel, as explained before. It is classified level 5 clearance needed, which just is to say that's like a very big secret kept within the organization. Special containment procedures, because the way all of these documents start, the idea is this is an internal memo that's shared around the organization, right? So typically, if you're accessing the memo, the first thing you need to know is how to keep it trapped. Right. So if someone's in an emergency looking at this, here's what you do, right? And then it will get into what it is, how it exists, stuff like that. So the area containing SCP-3000, currently a region of the Bay of Bengal, roughly 300 kilometers in diameter, is to be routinely patrolled by Foundation naval vessels. Under no circumstances are civilians allowed to attempt deep-sea exploration or diving efforts in the quarantined area. Individuals believed to have contacted SCP-3000 are to be contained, quarantined, and processed at Site-151. Individuals affected by the anomalous properties of SCP-3000 are to be held in containment indefinitely. The Foundation submarine, SCP-F Aramida, is that how that's pronounced? Aramida?
Aramida looks right.
Aramida, sure. Is to monitor the location of the foremost section of SCP-3000, currently located within the Gong's Fan, roughly 0.7 kilometers beneath the bay. The Aramida is tasked with carrying out the Atzak protocol, and staffing regulations on board the vessel are subject to the guidelines of that protocol. For a full description of the Atzak protocol, see Addendum 3000.2.
I keep wanting to read it as Aztec.
I keep thinking Aztec protocol.
Every time, yeah.
Yeah, it's Atzak. There is currently no known cure for exposure to SCP-3000. As such, affected individuals should be contained and quarantined for further evaluation. Individuals stationed aboard the SCP-F Aramida are not permitted to leave the vessel except for the purposes of carrying out the necessary procedures of the Atzak protocol. Individuals who leave the vessel without proper authorization are to be considered lost. Under no circumstances should any individual interact with SCP-3000 without authorization.
So that's the procedure.
That's the procedure. That's what you do with it.
So here's the thing. I love this idea of, like, everything that they said, I think is fun. It's a weird kind of boat that's just kind of around. You can't, don't be fucking with this thing without letting anybody know. Like, I've referenced this a lot, but like the terror, it makes me think of like the submarine thing of like, don't be going in the water fucking with stuff. Or
And if anyone does step out, they're considered lost.
Which is such a haunting and cold thing. And but then there's also these little trickles of shit where I'm like, this is where I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? And processed at Site-151. It's these things where it's like, I know that's just supposed to be like, you're not even supposed to know because the organization's so big. But to me, I'm always just like, it just feels like so much jargon sometimes.
I understand.
And that's where sometimes I get a little thrown. Some stories, like I'm at the center of everything, it's like
it just
so
leans
much.
on that. Yeah.
It's like so much to where it's distracting. This is fine. I think this is sick.
This is just to say Site-151, probably a location near Southeast Asia. That's all you need to know. It is an SCP site that's in the region to house people at.
I'm also excited because this is our first deep sea.
This is our first deep sea story. I don't think we've covered any ocean.
I thought that was how the fuck is that possible though? We haven't found like one deep sea.
I mean, I know a ton of deep sea creepypastas.
I want more deep sea creepypastas.
That was actually this is some deep lore. When I was in high school, because I wrote a bunch of short stories and stuff like that. The first short story I think I ever wrote, it was 12 pages, was a story called Leviathan. That was about a deep sea monster. So like that's always been like one of my favorite creepy things to work off of because I've always been so scared of the ocean.
Oh yeah, no, the ocean is fucking horrifying. I got really into Moby Dick for some reason when I was younger.
I read Moby Dick and I think I read it in the 7th grade and I loved it.
There was a movie in the 50s or 60s, an adaptation of it with Gregory Peck. Remember, I was a really big Gregory Peck fan for some reason because I'm a 95-year-old man. But I love the idea of old timey fishermen and that kind of stuff. There's something so fucking haunting too. The ocean is such a powerful, dark force.
I've always had this like appreciation for like people who fall in love with it. You know, there's such there's such a interest to me about like the sailor mindset of people who like long for the sea and stuff like that because it's so terrifying to me. It's so interesting that someone's so enamored with
it. Has to be in tandem with astronauts.
Yes, that does space in the sea. Yeah, yeah.
The idea of me being in a large body of water and just having shit below me that I can't see, that's
Absolutely not. Yeah.
I cannot fuck with that at all. Also, I just feel like I would drown. I know how to swim. I wouldn't say I'm an avid swimmer, but I feel like I would be a sinker. Ladies and gentlemen, I would sink.
Yeah, no, not for me. Not my calling, thankfully.
Also, here's another thing. I don't really fuck with fish.
Well, it depends on the fish. I don't like giant fish like SCP-3000, but I mean, like,
even if I was just swimming in a river and my foot grazed a tiny rainbow trout, I wouldn't like that.
I'm fine with that because I grew up in East Tennessee. We go river fishing and
I'm just saying that I don't care for it.
Oh, you just don't want it to happen.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah,
I got you. All right. So after that containment procedures, you've got the idea of how creepy it is. We can now get into the description. So SCP-3000 is a massive aquatic serpentine entity strongly resembling a giant moray eel. The full length of SCP-3000 is impossible to determine, but it's hypothesized to be between 600 and 900 kilometers.
How, for an American, what is that?
Around 700 miles.
It's a giant hill that's 700 miles long.
It's the distance from like here to Kansas City. Like that is how long this thing is.
Okay.
The head of SCP-3000 is measured roughly 2.5 meters in diameter.
Got a little chode head.
And sections of the body proper are as large as 10 meters in diameter. So at its widest parts,
it's 10.
It gets up to 30 feet wide. So,
it's a big,
it is
long
incredibly
boy.
slender.
Yeah,
like its whole length.
Yeah.
But it just goes on and on and on forever.
In comparison to how long it is, but still being...
30 feet wide is big.
30 feet wide is fucking insane.
But its head, especially, is only 2.5 meters, which is like 7 feet, 8 feet in diameter.
So it's kind of funny. He's big chode.
Yeah, pretty much.
Kind of head.
But its body's like forever.
If you had to theorize, actually throw up some art of what people theorize his head to look like.
Actually, there's a picture at the top of the article.
Is that his head? Is that his head?
Yeah.
No, I don't like that.
You don't like that?
I think we could do better than that.
SCP-3000 is typically a sedentary creature, only moving its head in response to certain stimuli or during the feeding. The majority of its body is located in and around the Ganges fan, and rarely moves at all. SCP-3000 is carnivorous, and despite its sedentary nature, is capable of moving quickly to dispatch prey. Despite its size, it is hypothesized that SCP-3000 does not require sustenance to maintain its biological functions. While SCP-3000 excretes a thin layer of a viscous, dark gray substance classified as Y909, see Addendum 3002 below, which we will, through its skin as it consumes prey, the end result of its digestive processes is currently unknown.
It's kind of fun. It like secretes this weird like dark gray cum while it's eating shit.
Mm-hmm.
What could you possibly eat to satiate yourself?
Oh, well, we're gonna find out.
I'm excited. Well, I'm excited to figure out. But can you imagine being that big and you're just like, let me eat? Like, there's nothing on this. You have to eat Mount Everest.
700 miles. That's a big boy. Yeah. What the biggest, not counting the Great Barrier Reef because those are different organisms. The largest living thing in the world is the moss. It's like one moss patch that is growing in.
Which is bullshit too.
Well, but still, it's a superstructure that is several square miles.
Yeah, it pales in comparison to this giant.
To how big this thing is. Yeah.
This thing has to also be some kind of alien, right?
Well, so they're actually going to talk about theories of what it could be.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll get to that part. What's fun about the SCP stuff is like it tries to work its way, good ones, try to work their way into like history and religious themes and stuff like that. So, SCP-3000 is a Class 8 cognitohazardous entity. Are you familiar with cognitohazards?
No.
So it's the idea that just knowing about it or knowing information about it's dangerous.
Damn. The eel knows that I know about it. Don't get in the fucking water, asshole.
That like if you know like information can be dangerous. That's a cognitohazard. Like there's one SCP that if you say its name, or if you even think its name, it appears. So so in all the reports of it, they never give its name. It's like the thing, right? Direct observation of SCP-3000 may cause severe mental alterations in viewers. Individuals who directly observe SCP-3000, as well as any individuals within a certain distance of 3000, experience inexplicable head pain, paranoia, general fear and panic, and memory loss or alteration. The following is a log from Site-151's historical records, written by Dr. Eugene Getz about initial discovery of 3000 and the effects felt therein. So now we move into the logs. So, the unease was felt throughout the entire crew as we descended on that first night. Whether this was due to our uncertainty of what we would discover or something more sinister, I would not speculate. As we continued to descend, Williams began sweating profusely. When asked about it, he could not respond, stating that he thought he was missing something he could not deduce. As our descent continued, he began to act more and more erratically, at one point addressing myself as Darlene and expressing uncertainty as to the task he was assigned to handle. Similar feelings were expressed by other members of the crew, but Williams felt it most. His mimetic resistance was by far the lowest of all of us, but he was a biologist, not a mimeticist. So mimetics is like, if SCP-3000 is a cognitohazard, the thing that is hurting you in that situation is the mimetic nature of it, the knowledge, the presence of it. So everyone else on the team is like trained for this, but Williams is a biologist. He's not like...
Yeah, his brain's getting fucked right now.
He's getting messed pretty hard, yeah. When we finally came into contact with the entity, he began whimpering and had to be sedated. I remember him muttering the word no over and over again as if in disbelief. He went silent after a while as we approached its head. When I looked back at him, something had gone from his eyes. He did not even so much as blink as we made our final descent. At around 09-400, we first observed the head of the entity. The unease was palpable now. Several other crew members complained of feeling hazy and of being uncertain what they were supposed to be doing. Captain Ritter, ever the man's man, wrote it all off as nitrogen intoxication and forced them to continue approaching the entity.
It's kind of a classic Lovecraft trope there too. I know I'm Lovecraft, I get it, but it's a thing of a person who is not abiding by the warning signs and keeps descending more and more into madness kind of thing. You see that a lot with like At the Mouth of Madness. There's also, I forgot which I can't remember which book it was too, but it's all about actually a submarine. The guy goes down and he sees like an ancient civilization.
Yeah,
castle.
that one's it's at something, right? At something's deep, or not at the Mountain Madness, but
I can't remember.
Yeah,
all I know is that at that one, it's just a guy who is just completely fixated. Yeah. Seeing these kinds of things of people slowly... I mean, can you imagine actually going down into the absolute darkest part of the world, the bottom of the ocean? You see a giant face, which I want to say this too. I just want to just speculate now just to see what if people are thinking the same thing. Does it make it worse that he's so big, or would it be more intimidating if it was small?
I think, well, it depends on what level. Because if it's small, like smaller than you, then yes, it's easier. But you're saying like length, right?
I'm just saying, I'm just saying that, does it become crazier where you're like, is it harder to find? This thing is so big to where it's, and if you don't know about it, so normal people who are doing fishing or, deep sea diving and whatever, blah, 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 going around, they don't know, so they're not affected by it. But if it was like, let's just say it's like an entity that lives, like let's say it's the moss.
Okay.
In the ocean. You go down there, but it's just only this little bit of mileage on all of Earth that you go down and you start to become more, mentally hazy, you start freaking out more. Does that feel more intimidating than something that's 700 miles long?
It depends. So sometimes, yes, there are a bunch of creatures like that it's a small thing, like something you have to watch out for individually. And that has its own fear with it, but there's something about a creature that is like 700 miles long.
I mean, I'm wrong. It's intimidating.
It's like it's hopeless, Something that big that's been down there for who knows how long is almost like it's like a new religion almost. The fact that it exists, it's like it reframes your structure of how the world works, of how nature works, and stuff like that. When we were within 50 meters, the entity turned slowly to look at us. Even now, as I recall watching this thing coil around in the darkness, I can still hear Williams barking like a mad dog in the rear of the vessel. screaming and flailing, shouting about how he could see it in his head. Perkins and Harrison tried to restrain him, but he got free and smashed his face in against one of the portholes. He hit it so hard, cracked the inner layer of glass.
Fuck that.
The damage was bad enough that we had to surface. We tried to give Williams medical attention, but he was too far gone at that point. He had pulped himself against the glass, and despite the trauma, he still spoke briefly as he lay dying. Nobody recorded it. We didn't think to at the time, but I remember it well enough. He said,
"There's nothing. Nothing."
By the time we had reached the surface several hours later, Williams was dead. At the time, I didn't think much about what he had said. Just the ravings of a man gone mad by the depths, I figured. I didn't know any better. But even now, I can still see the eyes of the creature. I see it hanging there in the darkness, illuminated by a light I cannot source. And I feel the lingering dread that Williams must have felt that night in the submersible as he was overcome by whatever void that foul thing slithered out of.
That's sick. So, and I know it's fucked up. I immediately think of the Subnautica going down to see the Titanic thing, whatever, implosion.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the video game Subnautica.
Oh, yeah, I probably was. What was it even called? I can't remember.
Now I just think Subnautica, but that wasn't the name.
The Titanic implosion thing. I'm thinking that, when they were down there, they saw the beast, you know what I mean? Do you think that the guy was he driven mad and he was hitting his face against the glass? Was it because of the madness, or was it like a deep infatuation to actually, I don't know, see or get to the thing? Do you think it was drawing them in, or do you think he was just like, I can't, this is hell. Like, don't take me.
It's a little cheating because I know where the story's going.
Oh, well, then I mean.
But I think on my first read, my idea was like the sight of it drove him mad.
Yeah.
Like the fact that this thing exists was like, which doesn't really hold up because he's an SCP biologist, so he's seen a lot of stuff that would theoretically drive someone mad.
Well, but even if he's a rational person, being driven to an irrational place, I think can be justified. I think too. Once again, it kind of puts me in that mode where I'm like, I don't really know if I am vibing with it being so big and so monstrous versus it being like some kind of entity just floating in the water or something to where it's causing you that existential dread. Something that's just, it's in a key point, and it can still move around the earth, but it's tiny and it can, that
it's
way
like man-sized.
That way you can, if you did have people who just kind of somehow came across it or it showed itself to somebody, almost like a weird mermaid or something even.
Yeah.
Like that would be fucked, you know?
Yeah.
Who knows?
I could see that. I think there is. I mean, it's not like that. I think it's just a predator, but I'm pretty sure there is a mermaid SCP, if I remember right.
I'd hope so.
Discovery. SCP-3000 was discovered in 1971, shortly after 2 Bangladeshi fishing boats and 15 fishermen were reported missing after drifting near the Indian coast. As the country of Bangladesh had only been recently established at the time and had been subject to significant political persecution on the part of Pakistan, this incident received high-profile media attention due to fears that it was a result of foreign aggression. Local coastal dispatch units could not locate the missing boats, fueling further media hysteria. Foundation researchers stationed in Calcutta, now Kolkata, drew similarities between this disappearance and another incident 2 years earlier. Marriott Pashler counters revealed the location of the 2 boats, as well as an unknown, previously undiscovered mass deep below the surface of the Bay of Bengal. Further investigation by Foundation divers discovered the existence of SCP-3000. The area was quickly secured, and current containment procedures were put in place in April of 1972. The Atzak protocol was adapted in October of 1998. So, this is Addendum 3001, which is the initial contact exploration log. So this was like the initial notes from when they came across it.
1971 to 1998, 26 years of basically figuring this kind of actual
of like, because research was hard to perform, of course.
Sure.
It's, it's a kilometer underneath the ocean. And also, like, I can only imagine how long it took to track how big it is.
Sure.
Underwater.
Well, yeah, I mean, probably wouldn't even want to fucking approach the thing.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
Okay, let's go.
Measure it.
I want to swim right up next to it.
Yeah.
I'm good, especially because it's like has mimetic in
Yeah,
presence.
exactly.
And, like,
Also, I
controls
want to
rate.
kill myself. Swimming up next.
Not only is this huge, but I have a gun, and I'm gonna addendum 3001. Note: the following is the transcript of audio logs taken during the initial deep sea diver contact with SCP-3000. Until this point, no Foundation diver had come within 300 meters of 3000. Divers were tasked with assessing the creature and determining the source of the thick, gray fluid that had been observed floating around its head. Dive team was composed of 3 members of MTF Orion 9, known as Kingfishers, led by MTF 09 Alpha. Which, side note, if you're like into like gun stuff or like military stuff, that's one of the reasons the SCP Foundation is so cool, because there are dedicated like special force units for everything.
Yeah.
Like the group who does underwater diving and stuff is known as the Kingfishers, right?
It's a sick name.
There's
I will say, just right off the top, as not being that big of a gun guy or like a fucking army dude or whatever. When I read this shit, I'm always just like, what the fuck are you even talking about? MT9 Orion. What I get lost.
So MTF stands for Mobile Task Force. Okay. It's a military term. So if like you have a ground unit who like does something on site and they have a specialty, you'll have like an MTF or like hostage team rescue or like bomb disposal.
So if there was
something
like
like
a
that.
school shooter, you would
have
MTF.
a mobile task force for. I mean, normally, like if police respond or whatever, it's not to that degree. But your MTF would be like threat dispatch or threat elimination, which is pretty much what a SWAT team does.
Waco kind of thing.
Yeah. So similar to that. Waco was a bit different. Waco was like you had the ATF going because it was gun charges originally. But then actually that's a good example because after the ATF had the shootout and now that they considered hostages were in the building, they left. And then you had the HRT come in, which was the hostage rescue team. So that's like a
So basically just these units of people that
who are designated to do one thing.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Mobile task force. Launch point was through the airlock of the Foundation submarine SCPF Stravinsky. All divers were equipped with high-pressure suits as well as front-facing headlamps. Additionally, a tether was connected to 09 Alpha, which was then connected in a T-shape out to both Bravo and Foxtrot. So these are the divisions given to the individual members of the team.
All right, Command. We're situated in the airlock and ready to roll. Confirmed. Go ahead and sound off.
Orion 9 Alpha check.
Orion 9 Bravo check. All right, men. We're in position about 500 meters from the head of the creature. Make sure your tethers are on good and tight. We don't want any of you getting separated out there. What's visibility like down here today, Command? Stand by. About 3 meters. So it's dark. Got it. Why are we so far out? The size of this thing's hard to comprehend, and it's wrapped up in itself in several places. We can't get too close because there's too much body there. The entity hasn't moved in about 3 weeks. At all? Affirmative. It moves slightly with the currents down here, but nothing more than that. If it weren't for the head movement that was observed by the first submersible team, we probably wouldn't know if it was alive or not. Oh, well, that's reassuring. All right. Tethers are tight. Flood the chamber. Confirmed.
The rushing water is heard as the airlock chamber floods. Again, this is all an audio log. No other sound is heard for several minutes. After some time, the sound of rushing water stops.
You both good? I'm good. It's cold. Hopefully we won't be out for too long then. Turn on your lights, boys. Here we go.
All members of the dive team exit the airlock. There's a low mechanical sound as the airlock door closes behind them. A muffled click sound is heard, and the Stravinsky activates its aft floodlights.
Hey, Alpha. Maybe this is a bad time to ask, but I can't remember how to turn on my lamp, and... Your lamp is on, Foxtrot. What? What did you call me? Your designation, Mulaney. Foxtrot. I'm Foxtrot, boss. Hang on. What are you talking about? I don't understand what you mean by designation. It's your goddamn call sign, Bravo. What do you mean? Who's Bravo? Shit. Hang on. I was going to say something. Barry, are you still there? Stand by. Go for command. Hey, we're having a little trouble out here. I'm not sure who... We seem to have some confusion over designations, and I'm not sure where we're going. Where exactly are we?
God, do you guys feel that? I've just got an awful headache. It's like needling in my brain. Something...
Dive team, be advised that we believe you may be experiencing some detrimental cognitive effects. Keep moving forward and we'll give you more information as we receive it.
Noted. Command, be advised that Foxtrot has a terrible headache. I think Are we going in the right direction? We can't see out here.
You are roughly 150 meters from the head of the entity, Alpha. You should be getting a visual soon.
Command, I don't see anything. Where are we? Where are we?
We're almost there, Alpha. Dive team, be advised. Picking up movement from the entity on radar.
Barry, I don't see anything down here. What are we supposed to be looking?
All I can see is darkness. There's a foul wind blowing, pushing me towards a brink. I can't...
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Command, Bravo is unresponsive. Requesting immediate cessation of mission. Wait a second.
On the edge of nothingness, inches from oblivion, there's a sickness in my mind that I know can't be cured. Beyond me is only blackness and a single pair of dark eyes.
What? What are you saying?
Dive team, we're gonna pull you back in immediately. We have reason to believe that.
Mary, is that you? How can it be? I shoveled the dirt during your... I can hear something over here. Alpha, your light. Get your fucking...
Silence, only silence. My consciousness coming undone and only. Dive team, something is moving towards you. Repeat, something is moving towards you. Prepare to return to...
This is shit. I can't see. How far are we from the... It's right there! It's right there! Fuck! What are you both doing? Fuck!
Only the eel remains.
Radio silence for 20 seconds.
Alpha.
Further radio silence for 13 seconds.
Alpha, Bravo, Foxtrot, do any of you hear us? Oh, thank God. Bravo, you need to speak up. We can't...
Radio silence for another 10 seconds.
Something's bound up the winch between you and us. We can't...
It's opening its mouth. It's so dark. There's...
Where am I? What?
Barry, how can it be? I shovel the dirt. Mulaney's. Swim, get away. There's only darkness. Swim.
Only...
There's sudden tension in the tether attached to the Stravinsky. 09 Foxtrot's radio goes silent. There's the sound of a struggle through the other two radios.
Foxtrot, Alpha, Bravo, talk to me, stay calm. What happened?
It ate him. Fuck. He's gone. It took him whole. God damn it. Alpha, what are you doing? Alpha? Cut the fucking goddamn tether, Alpha! He's pulling us in! Oh, fuck.
Total radio silence for 30 seconds. Tether attached to Stravinsky is pulled free from its moorings and disappears.
Alpha, Bravo, do you copy?
Radio silence for 5 seconds.
Alpha, Bravo, do you copy?
This is Bravo. I'm floating in the dark. I can see shapes moving through the fog, but they're hard to make out. I cut my tether. Alpha wouldn't. I think he's gone. I don't see his light anymore.
Acknowledge.
Hang on. Just let me think for a second. Cognition. This thing. It doesn't work around it. Your brain can't form a thought. It hurts. It's like dying. And
Bravo, do you have eyes on the entity?
it's my head, guys. Coiled up in there like a snake. And something about it is caustic. I can see it. Just in front of me. It's not doing anything. It's moving. Just hanging there. With its mouth open. I think it's finished eating. That fluid is seeping through the skin around its head. About a meter back. Just looking at stuff is making me... like the room is spinning. I feel nauseous. My head isn't working right. There's an abortion under the floorboards. And another's in this... Wait, this is wrong. That wasn't me. Who said that? I'm going to collect a sample. Hang on.
Bravo, we're gonna send out a crew to get you. Just hold on.
Oh no, don't do that. You have to be trained not to feel things I'm feeling. Otherwise it'll get into you. Maybe it will anyway, who knows? It feels like the end of the world down here, fellas. My heart is going off the charts. I think I'm dying. I got a sample. I'll attach it to one of those little balloons and let it float up. You'll be able to get it later. Don't spend too much time around that stuff. It doesn't... Your mind...
Bravo!
I think I'm dying. I'm dying. I know I'm dying. This is it. I just want to get away from here. You know, it occurs to me. Don't send anyone else out here. It's so dark.
Bravo.
That's really good. You did great. Wow, that was like 10 out of 10. Look at that.
I love a nice. There's nothing seriously more horrifying than losing the ability to control your own thoughts. Like mental deterioration is the most horrifying thing.
It starts with like they can't remember each other. It's like, wait, you're Bravo, I'm Bravo, and then Bravo's like, my head hurts, and he's like, Command, Foxtrot's head hurts.
It's quick too. It's like,
yeah.
like almost immediately they're all getting ready, and then all of a sudden it's like as soon as they got into some kind of zone, it just.
And it's like, I don't know if it's elaborated on, but to me, it's almost like Bravo. Like, okay, so Command's name was Barry,
right?
Commander's name. And I think he was getting Barry's memories for a second. Because he's like...
Oh, interesting.
Because he's like, you can't be Barry. I buried you. I dug the dirt. And maybe it's like a memory Barry had of burying someone.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's because there was also like things about like abortion and other kind. It kind of felt like all of like maybe like their guilty consciences kind of come in. Even Barry's guilty conscience.
It's like they're all... It's like it took all of their memories and like Play-Doh'd it together. And now they're like pulling pieces out.
What do you think the secretion is?
So it'll actually go into that in a second.
Oh, well, I guess the first time you read it, what like
so it is definitely because the guy there says even just looking at it, I feel off.
Right.
So it is probably like basically like the essence of the creature. I was under the impression originally when I started reading it, which is kind of cheating because I read a ton of SCP stuff before I read this, that it's a kind of amnestic. So in the SCP universe, amnestics are used a lot. Basically, you remember Men in Black, like the neuralizer? Like, a bunch of people saw something they shouldn't, boop, like
sure.
Delete your memory, right?
I figured it was something that... yeah, like it's a layer of something that just makes you go insane. And
just takes
like a defense
takes
mechanism or something.
Yeah.
I was almost thinking that if he's this big and he's excreting stuff, how much is he polluting the water and stuff? Like is it as a way of him being able to like, you know, is he slowly just seeping shit over time to the ocean? The ocean's huge, you know, even if you're 700 miles long, the ocean's giant. So I didn't know if it's something that if it's some kind of way of him to be able to secrete this kind of stuff into the water as well. And just, I don't know, over time, I guess fuck everyone, but I don't.
And yeah, I mean, like it says they originally started looking for him in this region because there was like the goo that was around, so it probably was a pretty big problem.
Little dirty cum going on.
Yeah. Over the next half hour, the SCP-F Stravinsky attempted to approach 09 Bravo with no success. Command continued to attempt to communicate with 09 Bravo, but Bravo grew increasingly unintelligible, before eventually going completely silent. Bravo's radio stayed active over the next 3 days, and intermittent breathing could be heard until the radio ceased function.
That's so fucked.
3 days just
You just listen to a man just like breathing, like just kind of slowly dying. That's insane.
It's pretty rough.
Also, this is probably when they probably implemented the rule of, hey, if they're gone, if they're down there,
they're gone.
They're lost.
Like, yeah,
just
if they leave the ship, they're considered lost. Yeah.
Also, hearing all that stuff too, I feel like it would. How do you justify sending more and more people? I guess the Stalingrad method.
That too. Well, you're about to find out why the Foundation keeps doing it. Remember, this thing is not categorized as a Euclid or a Keter. It is categorized as a thymule, which means the organization is using it for something.
Well, they're probably fucking harvesting the cum.
They wouldn't do that, would they? Let's find out.
I would.
Addendum 3002. This is the Atzak protocol. So it's an explanation of what that is. Protocol dictates certain interactions with the Class 8 Cognitohazardous entity, SCP-3000, and as such is Level 5 classified. In other words, this is like, you have to be super high up to know that this is a thing that exists. The following protocol was developed in conjunction with researchers from Site-29 and Site-50, areas around the region, as well as researchers stationed at 151. Some sections may have been redacted to remove material about the classification. Adherence to this protocol is required for all personnel assigned to 151, as well as all personnel assigned to the SCPF Eremita. Abstract: the 151 Hollister Atzak protocol has been developed and implemented to create a strategy for the management of the Y909 chemical excreted by 3000. Protocol information: the Y909 compound, originally discovered by the late Dr. Adam Hollister, wonder why that happened, is a critical component in several modern and experimental amnestic compounds. Specifically, the following amnestics now contain a refined version of Y909 compound. So these are all the different variants. So what's fun is when you're reading a different SCP way later, and it's like
you can go back and track and see if these are one of them.
Yeah, so like you'll get to something where it'll be like a creature broke out in the middle of a small town, and it'll be like 30 people were administered with Class X amnestic, and you're like, oh yeah, I know they get that class, they get that amnestic from this guy. Yeah, so there's like world building in that sense.
Well, I like the world building, but I also like how you can take from the story without completely, because with the creepypastas, I feel like No Sleep, you're taking someone else's character creation, and like if you wanted to use it again, you're kind of like taking that person's character without them really saying like, oh, is that cool? Yeah. Versus you just saying like, oh, Class X. It's like, yes, it comes from this, but you could also just be like, oh, that's like a fun way to...
Exactly, yeah.
You know, it doesn't take anything away from the actual...
it's just like, oh, yeah, SCP-3000, got it, yeah. Like, comes off of
the
that.
The collaborative efforts and, like, the community around this is just... I can see how it would be just way more strong of being like, oh, that's cool, he used this thing. You know
especially, what I mean? Like, there's some characters who will, like, show up between different ones, and that's always cool. See, like, there's this one researcher named Dr. Bright, who was handling a medallion that was like found at the center of like some occult worship, and they didn't know what the medallion did. So one day, a researcher named Dr. Bright is like carrying the medallion around, and there's an explosion, and he's killed. Then in the cleanup for the site, someone finds the necklace. It's like the medallion's like on a chain, and they put it on, and instantly Dr. Bright comes to consciousness in their body.
Oh, so
and it turns out that if you die while holding the amulet, your soul is basically preserved in the amulet. And anyone who puts on that amulet immediately becomes brain dead, and you possess them until the amulet comes off.
That's crazy.
And if the amulet comes off, that person who had put it on just drops over dead. They're effectively dead the moment the chain slips on.
But if it comes off, then they kind of regain consciousness again. As long as
no, they're dead.
Oh, forever.
The moment that goes on, they are brain dead, and if the necklace comes off, they just drop.
Oh, okay, so they have to keep it on.
Yeah, they have to keep it on. So what will happen is you'll have a story where you're reading about like some ancient like occult underground thing or whatever, and there will be a mention of like the high priest seems to have a medallion underneath his cloak, and you're like, oh, that's Dr. Bright. Like Dr. Bright's like, that's actually Dr. Bright possessing the priest. You'll have stuff like that. Like fun crossovers and things. Yeah. So the inclusion of the Y909 compound has shown a marked increase in the stability and long-term effectiveness of the aforementioned amnestics. Overall, amnestics utilizing Y909 break down 78% slower than their standard counterparts in cold storage and 52% slower than their counterparts at room temperature. Additionally, individuals administered with amnestic regime utilizing 909 show a marked increase in suggestibility, memory clearance, and a significant decrease in additional side effects like nausea, vomiting, bowel distress, blurred vision, headaches, all the stuff that comes with, wiping people's memory. Individuals treated with these amnestics express significantly fewer intrusive memories as those without 909, with some individuals exposed to experimental compounds expressing no intrusive memories whatsoever, even at the 5 and 10 year marks. Due to the effectiveness of these treatments with the addition of 909, the continued inclusion of this compound is essential to modern Foundation application. Reliance on the continued use of 909 necessitates its collection for the foreseeable future, as a synthetic version of the compound has not yet been discovered.
So Eelcum, they're basically going to use it to wipe people's memories.
Yep, and everything we just read is justification for like, well, it works so well.
Yeah.
We have to keep using it. So the dangers
big business type shit.
Big business stuff, yeah. It's for the great. That's the Foundation's whole thing. It's always for the greater good.
Yeah,
it's always for whatever comes next. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes they're right.
I mean, I'm sure it is in a way, but it's just a matter of like, it's at the greater good is always at the loss of someone else.
Yes, exactly. The only reason you have to preface that is because someone's losing somewhere, right? And we're about to see why some people that lose. As such, this protocol dictates the way this compound is collected off of 3000 and the way personnel are to interact with 3000. Below is a brief framework of the procedure, and detailed information can be found in the full Atzak brief. Members of MTF Epsilon 20, known as the Night Fishermen, pretty cool, are to prepare a subject for deliverance to the feeding site. One individual D-class subject is to be administered a sedative and equipped with a high-pressure diving suit.
Brutal.
Yeah.
God, they're gonna give a guy Ambien and put him in a fucking suit. Yeah, I feel sleepy. Put
Don't
her on the
worry,
suit.
buddy.
Yeah,
We're going
swimming.
We're going to Disneyland.
To put Michael Phelps down there and have him swim down.
Just slapping the roof of his helmet. You good, buddy? All right. When you come back up, you'll get your the charges are free.
It's kind of funny to think of like a guy in like a giant like suit, like just like asleep floating down. He's just like.
The subject is then to be tethered to an underwater ROV within the aft airlock. The airlock is to be flooded, and the subject is to be towed by the ROV towards the feeding site.
Oh fuck, dude! Just like an unconscious body, being...
like a little like
There you go.
scuba thing dragging him. Upon reaching the feeding site, the ROV is to disconnect its tether and return to the Aramida. Through this stage, Aramida should monitor 3000's position and adjust course if the entity begins to move away from the feeding site. Mission Command will provide additional instructions during the phase if necessary. Personnel aboard the Aramida are to monitor 3000 during feeding sessions. During this time, no personnel are permitted to leave the Aramida without authorization from Command. At a point after the total consumption of prey, 3000 will begin to excrete 909 near the foremost section of its body. Specialized teams of deep-sea divers are to exit the Aramida through the aft airlock and approach 3000. Collection of 909 must take place during 3000's digestive period, which is currently believed to be roughly 2.5 hours after consumption of prey. Teams must return to launch craft before the end of this period. During this period, the typical effects of 3000 are less severe, though Command should continue to monitor these teams for damage to their cognition. After collection of 909 is complete, personnel are to transfer the collected substance to secure containers before returning to the surface. The mission administrator on board the Aramida is to monitor the substance throughout transport. The Atzak protocol is feed a person to it, and then during the digestive period, collect cum. Yeah. Now, it seems that during the digestive period, it is less mind controlling, right? We even saw that in the first thing. When Foxtrot was eaten by it, Bravo had a moment of
he was able to kind of come out.
There's like, I think this thing's messing with our mind, stuff like that. So if you don't exit the craft until it's eating, then maybe you can collect it without having your mind messed with.
It's kind of an interesting take on sacrifice.
Yeah.
Offering a sacrifice up to somebody. It is fucked that they're just putting a guy in a suit and they're just like, sorry, buddy.
Like, just push him out of the ship slowly.
Also, it's under the assumption, too, that the eel does not move. It's just kind of idle.
It's super slow. Yeah, so like
so it is
slow.
moving.
Well, he mentions like it slowly turned its head towards our craft. But
Well,
they said just the head moves slowly.
So I was gonna say, but its body is idle, but it's just kind of sitting there and it just kind of sits in place. Mm-hmm. Pretty menacing.
Oh yeah, it's terrifying.
Can you imagine the thing with like what other motives does it have? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like especially they mentioned it's like coiled in itself. I imagine like getting to it, it's like a cave, but it's a cave of itself, of like its walls.
How
and
long
stuff
would
like
you be? If you got eaten by that thing, you would just drowned to death or something. I mean, like imagine going into a body that big. Right.
Yeah, you would. Well, there's no mention of chewing people up or
digestion, whatever. But
yeah, it depends on how the digestive process is for the cum, as you called it, for the 909 to come out. Like maybe it immediately like dissolves you and then pulls it out, or maybe you just like slowly decompose through its system. Who knows? Yeah, it's long enough that you have time to rot away. So, Addendum 3000.3, Psychological Evaluation. So this is a note on the date of redacted. Level 3 researcher Venkatramon Krishnamurthy.
Venkatramon Krishnamurthy.
Got it. Attempted to exit out the Aramida's aft airlock without diving equipment, but was quickly restrained and the airlock cycle aborted. Despite having a CRV of 26, which is a measurement of like how well they can hold up to it, And having not displayed any previous signs of depression or suicidal attempts prior to the assignment aboard the Ermita, Krishnamurthy was interviewed by staff clinical psychologist Dr. Anand Manava to acquire a better understanding of SCP-3000's potential effect on his psyche. So this is an interview between someone who went crazy and a doctor.
Ivan, how are you feeling?
Unwell.
That's what I hear. Do you want to talk about what happened today? We don't have to, if you don't want to. We can talk about something else.
I'm tired, Anand.
I understand. This assignment's been stressful on all
It's not... No, it isn't the stress. I've done this before. I've been on... I don't actually know if I've done this before.
You have.
I don't remember it. Any of it. I've been getting these out of context feelings. Like my body reacting to reflexes if it didn't know it had. Everything is so disconnected. And trying to keep it together is... I'm just tired.
When did you start feeling this way?
How long have we been down here? I don't remember. I don't know when, I honestly don't. I wish I could tell you more than that, but I have nothing. I look to the place in my mind that there's something else there, or sometimes nothing at all.
What do you mean, something else?
I've been having other people's dreams, Anand. I see faces I don't recognize, places I know I've never been, or maybe I have. I don't know. How can I know what is real or not when I can't trust my own mind?
Well, maybe I can help you with that, Venkat. We can go over things you think you've forgotten, and I can...
Don't patronize me. I know you felt it. Your mind gets hazy. Parts of you start to slip. Your memories grow faint, fading in and out until they're gone, or worse, replaced. You see paths that aren't yours, experiences you've never lived. You start to become other people, or nobody at all.
Venkat, please, I'm just trying to help.
Do you even know my work before we met? Come to think of it, I don't even remember how we met. I know your name. I know you're a psychologist. But are we friends? Are we brothers? I don't know how I know you. We work together, I know that. I still have that. But other things, they come and go. I don't know if I'm married or have children.
I see.
And that isn't the worst of it. I know this is happening to me. I know that my mind is coming apart. But there's something else in there too. Something rising out of the smoke of my smoldering consciousness. That eel.
The eel?
I don't remember my mother. I can hear her voice, but I can't remember her face. I can't remember how she smiled or how she... But what I do remember is she told me about gods. There is a god called Anatasisa, a serpent, the king of serpents, said to lie beneath Vishnu in the cosmos, a six-headed snake god. Isn't that something?
Yes, I'm familiar.
Ah, of course. I'm sorry, I forgot. I don't remember much, but I do remember that she told me about how Anastasia would linger past the end, gaze upon the darkness past the end of time. She said that when the light of the universe had gone out, all that will be left is Anastasia. I've worked my entire life at the Foundation, so much as I can recall. I've struggled to build my name and my reputation and done everything I can do to leave. Something, anything, some kind of mark that says I was here.
What is it?
I believe that SCP-3000 is Anastasia. I believe that this aberration, this treachery against cognition, is a result of us being in the presence of a god. Not just a god, but a god who exists across all time, all at once, and even beyond. Maybe some part of the nothingness beyond the edge of time is part of Anastasia as well. Maybe it acts as a conduit, some kind of...
Venkat, please. We're scientists.
No, let me finish. In defiance of the nothingness that comes after this, all of this, there's anesthesia. There's a chance that my memories might live on, that I might be remembered like memories I've seen have been through me. I don't have a proof of this, but when I looked into its eyes and saw what it showed me, I was afraid. I'm merely a mediocre man, not. This was a fear that I had refused to acknowledge for years, a fear of irrelevance, that no one will know who I am when I die. Afraid of being forgotten, afraid of life being meaningless, afraid of being alone, afraid of dying. There's a terror within me that I cannot reconcile or not. I won't lie to you and tell you that the Maw of Naga does not terrify me as well. But between this and the infinite dark I have gazed into, I have made up my mind.
End log. So, what did you think of that?
It's interesting. Well, it's interesting that a guy was able to go down and then come back.
So this was a guy who was on the ship who went up for a brief second and came back.
Probably threw one of the guys to feed him and all that stuff.
So there's two ways to look at this. There is one that what he's saying is right, that this is effectively an old world god that the Foundation stumbled across. And the Foundation, not caring for religion or anything, has come across a god and categorized it like an animal that they can, play with effectively. The other way to view it is that the animal has strong mimetic capabilities. And we see from this, it makes people want to be eaten by it. It gives people full of ideas like an anglerfish almost, to be hypnotized and drawn into it. So it is just filling his mind with things to make that happen. Like maybe this guy does have he can't remember his mom, but maybe the story of the snake god she used to tell him is real. And the creature has manipulated his memory to be like, I am that snake god, like anything to fill the present.
Yeah, I think that regardless, that's a godlike power.
Yeah. It is. It's
So I
supernatural
think,
for sure.
Regardless if it is the name of the deity they're saying, I think that it's still. I am under the impression that it is like an old god somehow.
And also, if it is, then that leads into what you were saying when you were like, it's almost like sacrificing people to ancient gods. That's exactly what the Foundation is doing. They're appeasing God by pushing people into it. Yeah. Well, so it's kind of like, it's interesting. I like SCPs like this because it's like taking ancient religion and like human sacrifice practices and putting it through a modern scientific lens, basically.
Through a scientific lens, and also I like the logs of people talking about, once again, their descent, or they're trying to rationalize something that the human brain would never be able to fathom. It's kind of like those universal questions where it's like the human brain is not meant to comprehend this.
The unknowable, the exponential.
And I just eat that shit up, too. I love it.
Addendum 3000.4. After 2 days of containment within a secure holding cell on board the Armida, orders were received to lift the hold order on Dr. Krishnamurthy, in accordance to the terms of the Atzak protocol. 3 hours after Krishnamurthy was released from his holding cell, the following incident took place. So this one is a video and audio log, so it'll cut between a description of what was happening on camera and the audio. So Krishnamurthy stands near the entrance to the Armida's airlock. Subject is facing away from nearest camera. Proximity alarm is triggered. Exterior floodlights activate. 3000 is still not visible. Command is alerted, and Armida's engines engage, preparing for evasive maneuvers. Krishnamurthy is startled by proximity alarm and begins to appear panicked. Subject continues to look at entrance to the aft airlock. Subject turns briefly towards nearest camera and is observed to be weeping. Krishnamurthy slowly approaches aft airlock and opens airlock door. Subject enters airlock and primary access door seals behind subject. Interior airlock camera captures Krishnamurthy staring at exterior airlock door for a full 2 minutes unmoving. After 2 minutes, subject collapses on the ground. All cameras shutter as primary turbines spin up. 3000 is visible on radar approaching the Armida. 3000 is not visible on exterior cameras. Krishnamurthy stands up and approaches diving suit locker. Subject puts on a high-pressure deep-sea diving suit and then moves towards exterior door controls. Subject engages exterior door latch. Interior airlock cameras obscured by rushing water. Secondary alarms triggered by airlock breach. Personnel on the bridge attempt to close airlock, but Krishnamurthy has already exited the airlock. Krishnamurthy hangs in the water behind the aft section of the Armida. Illuminated by exterior floodlights, subject is motionless. 3000 slowly appears from out of the darkness. Krishnamurthy remains motionless. Exterior cameras shutter as Aramida begins to reverse towards Krishnamurti. Rescue teams have assembled in the airlock chamber. 3000 approaches Krishnamurti. Its mouth begins to open. Aramida sounds horns, but neither 3000 or subject appear to notice. 3000 moves to just above Krishnamurti. Subject appears to look up into the now fully expanded jaw of 3000. Aramida begins to flash external floodlights. Airlock opens.
I was wrong. God save me. It's not.
3000 strikes and quickly consumes Krishnamurti. 3000 disappears into the darkness and is no longer visible on exterior cameras. Rescue crews are recalled. Crew begins to initiate Atzak protocol in log.
Do you think? I mean, I still think that when he says I was wrong, do you think that maybe he thought that the god that he was thinking of was maybe like?
What I think is happening there is, for one, maybe it's a theory that it's not the old god, right? But if it is, Krishnamurti was talking in that interview about how like he longs for something greater. He was like, death and the nothingness of the afterlife is menacing. So maybe there's some greater revelation within 3000, right?
I almost think that him thinking that if this thing is talking to him, that he feels special because this thing is mimicking, like manipulating his mind, talking to him. So he's like, "Oh, I'm worthy."
Yeah.
But then when he gets there, it's almost like it
It's
snaps,
nothing,
and
yeah.
he's just like, "Oh, wait, I'm just gonna die."
I'm just killing myself right now. Yeah. I think that's what it was. I think it's to realize that because it still leaves open the door that it could be the old god. Maybe he's not wrong about that, but he's wrong about some greater enlightenment.
Also, if he has some deity or something that he does believe in, to say like, God save me, it's not whatever.
And
I think it's him realizing that he probably like gave his faith to something that was
He
a wolf in sheep's clothing.
He picked the wrong god.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a menacing thought in its own right.
Very, very. Yeah.
What have I been praying to? Very horrifying thought. That's why I like SCP stuff, because you can get into weird scenarios like this. You
definitely.
can play with the. So I also like to mention that he gets eaten, and it's like, oh no, well, we're not going to let all that go to waste. Like send out their little collection unit.
Well, it also just goes to show that like this is just such a faceless no one gives a shit.
Well, someone ate it, so
It's for the better good.
For the greater good. Yeah.
But no, I really like that. I also like the note that like on the camera he's weeping and he collapses for 2 minutes. It's almost like if he is being sort of possessed by the creature, he's like trying to fight it, like he doesn't want to be eaten by it.
See, I almost read that as just even further like I read it almost like him coming to terms with his own thoughts and stuff, and him putting on the airtight suit and stuff is him having the goal to be like, I'm gonna make a name for myself.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that.
That's how I kind of looked at it.
I'm fully committing to this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we move on to Addendum 3000.5. This is the personal journal of Dr. Manava. So Manava
Was
what was he? Was he a psychologist or a therapist?
But, he was just another doctor on the psychologist that was talking to Krishnamurti.
Yeah. So note, the following are excerpts from the diaries of Dr. Manava. Dr. Manava has kept several journals during his assignment and has reported that it is beneficial to counteract the psychological and memory-affecting properties of 3000. So Manava's figured out, like, I better write down what I remember.
Well, yeah, I'm going to Can you imagine being down there and not doing that? Like having some kind of actual clear reference.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're just going to be...
You're looking at a picture
never
of your
remember
family.
anything.
Who is this?
Yeah, no shit.
His first entry from September? Is that the... No.
Yeah, September.
Yeah, September 23rd, 2009. I come to bury Venkat, not to praise him. Psychologically speaking, having your memories affected like his is not a pleasant experience for anyone. I really shouldn't be surprised he chose to relieve himself from having his memories meddled with. After all, it's really alarming. Being briefed on its effects doesn't change the fact that I need to constantly keep tabs on all my staff, myself included, and ground us to reality. I am supposed to submit a full psychological report now, detailing what has gone wrong, why a staff member turned suicidal, and a full analysis of possible ways to prevent this from happening again in the future to the O5 and site director Knox. Site director is like individual sites will have a director.
Sure.
And then the O5 is the secret shadow organization that exists above the SCP. So if the O5 want to know about it, that means they're very concerned. And O5's like, they're like the top dogs who there are several SCPs theorizing who they are because no one knows who the O5 is. It's like, it's the shadow organization of the shadow organization. O5 and site director Knox have it reviewed and some new regime designed to prevent such a travesty from happening again. He always was more religious than I am. Right at the end of his life, he was riffing on Anatashisha, primordial Hindu snake god, and rambling about eternity. I'm not going to question the legitimacy of his beliefs and his claims, but this is quite the enigma, and I suppose I should consider myself lucky that this assignment is relatively benign compared to previous assignments that I've had. I don't think this is a mythical eel. Anomalous maybe, but not really that extraordinary. It's funny, I spent the last 30 years blocking out everything my father wanted to teach me about Hinduism, and now I'm racking my brains trying to remember anything he had to say about it. I want to say that it's because of the eel, but if I'm being honest with myself, I simply try to forget all his teachings. Maybe not at the beginning, but certainly by the end. I can barely even remember what he looked like, but I do remember how angry he got when I couldn't remember the names of my grandparents or great uncles. He was desperate to preserve his heritage, and I did everything I could to spite him. On his deathbed, he begged me to perform the traditional last rites after his death. He even wrote the instructions down, but I was so angry at him that I tore them up in front of him. Can't even remember why. The only memories I have of him are how he made me feel. He spent almost 20 years trying to pass down our heritage. All I have now is anger and hatred and regret. September 30th, site director Knox gathered the staff this morning for a short mourning. After a few brief and laconic eulogies, he took me aside and told me that Venkat's replacement will come in a few weeks, and as he kept no contact with his family, it's likely his belongings will just be disposed of and are now technically Foundation property. The director indicated that if I wanted to keep a thing or two for him, I should do so now. His office was relatively unremarkable. His cushy squash chair cushion, a few office toys, a lot of marine biology books that I should probably check out someday. The only thing I took was a statue of Ganesh that stood next to the window. Not fully sure why myself, but he's now sitting on the bookshelf, next to a picture of myself, my wife, and our daughter at a lakeside terrace. It's a pretty unremarkable trip, some tourist trap in Lucknow. This really is one of our best looking pictures. Going under again tomorrow. Another one from November 11th. All of the D-class managed to stay put this week, which is good. Other than the routine depression and memory loss from exposure to 3000, everything was in order. Sometimes I'm a bit envious of them. All they know is why they're scooping gunk off some big eel. They don't know of its importance or why it's critical that they collect it and how much it helps us. So even the people who are collecting it have no idea what it is. Yeah, like it is super secret that the reason they're collecting it is so that they can use it as an
Also, they
investment.
don't know about the, you know what I mean?
Yeah. They don't know. They're clueless to all of it. Yeah. Of course, one saving grace of being on the psychological division for the Atzak project is the awareness of its potential effects. I'm aware of what's happening to my psyche. I know that I have memories that are being drained, pieces that are being lost right now. I recall images of a young man on a bicycle in front of a schoolyard gate, looking like it was the 80s. When I was in Singapore, he was laughing. Yet I don't know if this man was a friend, a lover, a son, a family friend, who this young man is. Perhaps Italian, maybe Australian. Maybe this isn't even a cherished memory at all. I looked at the Ganesh statue and the picture of my family again. It's really quite a shame. I truly forgot most anything that I've done with them. I've started trying to learn some Hindu poems and songs, went out and got a copy of the Vedas, but I can't memorize the lines properly. I've been reflecting on what Venkat told me before he passed, though. His deep-seated fear of mediocrity, unable to rise out of the sea of humans that walk on the face of this earth. He's worked for the Foundation for years, and while he isn't one of the most well-known and household names of the Foundation, he's not exactly obscure. He's been the Foundation's leading marine biologist and go-to expert for anything aquatic, and quite well revered. I'm actually quite surprised by his jealousy. He was never the flashy and bombastic type, and I would have never guessed that he wanted fame and recognition. Perhaps he really was afraid that he is doomed to be stuck in mediocrity. Perhaps the silence of this place reminded him of something worse. So, this is, so that's that doctor's logs. Right? We now move on to a memorandum, or basically an update to the Atzak brief. So this is 3000.6. So this has been made by someone...
that isn't the doctor that
someone that isn't the doctor we're talking about. This is like an addendum to the Atzak protocol. So some new assignments had questions about our work here, so I'm publishing this to clear most of them up. Feel free to contact my office if there are any others. The Atzak protocol is a method for gathering and processing the 909 compound. It's a thick, brackish gray fluid that 3000 excretes as part of its metabolism. We don't know the exact method by which it does this, but we have some ideas. None of them are great for us. Initially, we thought it was bleeding. The first team we sent down to look at 3000 went down to collect blood samples for analysis. The 3000 attacked and consumed them and began producing more of the substance. We realized that we were looking at something different entirely. That first group being the Foxtrot Bravo, those guys. It's definitely not blood. It's more akin to a prion slurry. It's extremely toxic, and spending too much time around the stuff causes a lot of the same effects as exposure to 3000 does. Paranoia, memory loss, suicidal thoughts, etc. For finding the raw 909, what the processors call eel jelly, allows us to create amnestics more effective than any we've ever had access to in the history of this organization. Herein lies the ethical dilemma. 3000 only creates 909 after eating, and it only eats humans. Remember when I said we had some ideas about how it does this? Some of our biologists have hypothesized that 3000 is breaking down whatever makes a sapient creature sapient, filtering it through some part of its skin, and the residual ether is what we collect. You want to know something really messed up? We've taken radiographs of this thing, trying to see what's going on inside it. It's full of dead bodies. It's not digesting them at all. It's doing something else. And the end result is 909. So it's like it eats them, but it doesn't care about the biology.
It just wants it inside.
It's just pulling out, like, it's digesting their thoughts almost. It's digesting their souls and just leaving the bodies. It doesn't care for them. When we first started using 909 in our amnestic programs, we tried to synthesize it. We got something close to what we were looking for, 1919, but the side effects were catastrophic. The amnestics would work. We could get people to forget events, people, and so on, but then they would start to forget other things too. The mental deterioration would rapidly increase until there was nothing left, and then they would die. A few of those researchers thought we might be able to figure out how to decrease the severity of those side effects, but the cost to continue those trials would have been astronomical, and the program was discontinued. It's no secret that what we're doing here is abhorrent. The ethics committee, the classification committee, they're all looking at ways to make this more tolerable than what it is. But the hard truth is, if we want to continue to use modern amnestics, we have to have 909. If we want to have 909, we have to feed D-class to 3000. Otherwise, we'd be forced to go back to the metaphorical dark ages, where we were amnesticizing people with opiates and chloroform. Yeah, it's implied the organizations existed for hundreds of years.
Sure.
So it used to be like, the amnestic was bonk. Yeah, like, oh, what's that? Looks like you're crazy. Go to the asylum. Yeah. The good news is we're developing ROVs that should be able to take over the job of collecting the raw material from our dive teams. This will eliminate any chance of accidental casualties like we've had in the past, and is a good first step. For everything else, only time will tell. Director Knox.
So there's Knox.
So that's Knox's whole update.
Dude, he's like one of the 05 people, I'm pretty sure.
Well, he's the site director.
Or site
director. Because it said 05 and then site director Knox. Right. So Knox is the one who's overseeing all this, and he's basically being like, look, if you can't eat your cake and have it too. Like, if we want the
for the greater good.
For the greater good, exactly. Yeah, we got to throw people at the eel if we want the eel jelly. So this is addendum 3000.7. This is also from the journal of Dr. Manava, who we read earlier. Note, the following is the full text of a page pinned in the hand of Manava, which was ripped out of a journal and placed on his nightstand. So, and it's undated. This is just a writing he put. I've spent a considerable amount of time on this assignment attempting to understand the underlying effects of individuals exposed to a Class 8 cognitohazard. I have conducted numerous personnel interviews, written a great many psychological reports, but I have not been able to properly deduce what about this creature would lead a perfectly sane man out the door of that airlock and into the maw of that eel. Earlier this week, as I was preparing my notes for another report, I accidentally knocked a picture of myself, my wife, and my daughter off of my nightstand. The glass shattered as it hit the ground and the picture fell out. As I cleaned it up, I noticed something written on the reverse of the image. It said, Anand, Shanti, and Padma, June 2002. But the writing was not mine, it was Venkat's. I was puzzled by this. Why would Venkat have written on the back of a picture of mine? I thought little of it at the time and cleaned up the mess and went about my day, but this question stuck with me. It was a little thing, easily explained in any number of ways, but I could not seem to shake the notion of uncertainty. It was not until last night that a horrifying thought struck me, one that I cannot sleep on. I accessed the Foundation personnel archives and realized a truth I cannot reconcile. Shanti was Venkat's first wife. Padma was his daughter. The records are clear. The life I remember, the experiences I am certain I've had with them, are the experiences and memories of Venkat, not me. I've never been married, and I have no children. Even now, I can see my wife in my mind. I hear her laughter. I smell her hair. But I know now that this is Venkat, and I see her through, not me.
Do you think that Venkat was experiencing Madhav's thoughts then too, of like insecurity and stuff?
I think, so this is, I wasn't going to say it then. I think everything that Venkat said about my mother used to tell me of the Hindu gods, those were Vinod's memories. I think all of that was the eel manipulating him. It's like I said, Play-Doh. Like, you have 10 people, all their memories are now a ball, and I will distribute them in whatever way feeds them to me. Mm-hmm. That's what I think it does. The horror of this realization has been replaced with a queer sort of dread. I figured out what the eel does. Something about it, some latent part of its creation, abhors cognition. It breaks down human consciousness and scatters the part of us that we believe is a soul until all that remains is what we really are. Electrical signals that will someday become inert. Like, pulls the soul out of you and digests that almost. If even I can't remember myself, how can I expect anyone else to remember me? I have forgotten my own life, and I am strangely apathetic at this revelation. I will fade into darkness, as thousands before me have, and thousands after me will. No one will care as I am forgotten. I do not despair for my own sake, but for us all. You and I, we'll all face obliteration. I'm not important. You're not important. Vast droplets of irrelevancy stretching eons in the sea of time. We may fight against it, but our enemy is inevitability. I do not think that the eel is Anatashisha. I don't think it would matter if it was. What is clear to me now, as I feel myself coming apart, is not that the eel is some mythological creature or divine serpent. Perhaps it's just a primitive creature that eluded us, holding no malice. Perhaps it really is a primordial entity, harboring resent beneath the surface. The eel is not the harbinger of my demise or humanity's doom. The eel is not the end of all things. It only shows us what the end looks like. And in spite of everything we might believe, every ideal we hold or providence we pray for, I know this much is true of all of us. Our end will be a forgotten one. No, Dr. Manava was later discovered unresponsive near the aft airlock. Evidence suggests that Dr. Manava had broken into the onboard storage locker and ingested a significant amount of raw 909. Dr. Manava was moved off of the Aramida and remains at Site 151 for analysis. And with that, we have the ending of SCP-3000.
That was a lot of fun. I mean, it's just a big, giant Lovecraftian soup.
Yeah. That, like, it eats people, but it doesn't eat them biologically. It eats them, like, mentally.
Him being that big and just having tons and tons of humans in himself is sick.
Yeah.
I still think, I still under the impression where I'm like, let's just say it was a statue or just something.
Right.
Something that was just some kind of thing, some kind of idol to something that's smaller that it still could suck people in and it excreted some kind of liquid. I think that's cool too. I don't know why the scale is making me, it's obnoxious. But I think it's just trying to maybe...
So imagine it like it lays on the bottom of the ocean, right? And it's like infinite everywhere. And since humanity's existence, people have been feeding people to it.
Right.
Like, the story opens with in 1971, 15 people went missing. So, like, if there's no one nearby for the eel to call out to feed, it will call to shore. It will eventually get someone to come feed it. And that's been happening since the dawn of time.
Does it come up to the surface and eat people?
It moves so slowly, maybe. Or maybe, like, people just drown themselves. Maybe it eats their bodies.
They start swimming.
Maybe they start swimming down. Who knows? So it's half a mile down. So, I mean, you would, like, be super pressure and hurt. But if you go insane, you could reach that length, right? So it's all the way down there, and then the bodies that it ate 2,000 years ago are in there with the bodies it eats today. Yeah. It's like a giant... I don't think of it so much... I think the reason it doesn't bother me, because normally I'm with you, like, okay, it doesn't need to be that big. I don't think of it so much as a creature as I think of it as like a living tunnel. Like it is almost a superstructure,
Well,
like
that's
a
what-
giant tomb down there.
Well, that's what I was kind of thinking of, it being a giant living organism tunnel that's connected to the earth.
yes, yeah.
Like almost like it
Yeah.
can't even swim. It's just kind of like embedded into
It's
the
like a
earth
plant
or something.
more
Yeah.
than- yeah.
And like, yeah, it has a face and it looks like an eel or whatever else, but it's like whenever the earth was formed, however, so it's just been like that forever. Or it's just, it's been around so long that now it just sinks to the floor and it's just like embedded itself in a weird way.
And I love the way it plays with memories. I remember the first time reading this, getting so excited about the reveal that our first doctor, who was convinced it was a god, those weren't his memories. That was the other doctors.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's a
then
lot
that
of fun.
doctor seeing his family.
The idea,
as
like
his
you're
own.
saying, of the Play-Doh matching everybody's stuff around and the realization that you're like, I'm not even this life I feel like I've lived that's not even mine. I can't even remember my old life.
You have one guy to believe the other guy's religion, and the other guy had the other guy's family.
Yeah,
Like, it's
it's such a fun twist. It's a lot of fun. I mean, for our first SCP, I think this is a home run.
What? So I want to ask you, as someone who came into this like, I do not like SCPs, I'm having a bad time. How did you feel about that?
I think this was much more palatable than many I've read.
Good.
I think whenever you just get into stuff where it's the redacted stuff, or you harp too much on like take them to this site, well, like you get into the extreme minute details, which I'm sure a lot of people like when they're like,
But you've got to be really into it.
Yeah,
to-
this feels like it's just a different form of storytelling. It feels like a documentary.
The only thing that was redacted, if I remember right, it was one date, and then there were two amnestics that were redacted. That you
Okay.
Yeah. There's one date, and then when it was like, oh, this is two redacted amnestics. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I got redacted from the story. So it's pretty.
Sometimes when you're reading through, there's so many things that are just totally blacked out to where it fucks with the flow. If I'm like,
does,
well, what am I like?
What am I supposed to imagine?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
it fucks with it, which I understand that's the part of, that mystery that's supposed to be built. But this was just a fun way of telling us a story. I like all the inserts and logs and the kind of back and forth with people. I think you really get you got a really fun glimpse into the scientists and other people who are working on this thing in this underwater.
Yeah, I also like the way some of it's cataloged. Like this looks like almost a document folder of like, this is the guy that died, and like you look at that guy, he doesn't seem like someone that would go insane and like jump into the mouth of a Neil, but he did.
Yeah.
These
These little kind of evidence or photos always add so much. Like that's one thing, once again, I know I'm talking about Cousin Johnny a lot, but Cousin Johnny just showing family photos, and you're like, he's not even our family.
exactly, yeah.
I like that a lot. But I think for our first SCP episode,
I'm just glad that I made you, because I remember talking to you and you're like, if I look at an SCP, I'll kill myself.
Yeah. I
Over
felt
and
very
over.
much like that. Yeah, no, I think this has been reinvigorating. I think that having somebody too who knows good ones to be able to come in and also have somebody here to kind of go back and forth with makes it a much more enjoyable sit through. Also, I'm sure it's way funner to listen to as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I used to listen to, I mentioned Volgun earlier. Volgun makes these where he reads these, but the entire presentation of the YouTube video is that he's a lecturer, like at the foundation.
That's cool.
Like running through. And I would listen to his stuff for hours on it.
Shout out Volgun.
Volgun, VOL gun. Volgun.
Shout out Volgun.
Yeah, Volgun's great. But yeah, I like listening to it all the time. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. I know like SCP-3000 is just one of the ones I like. There's so many SCPs I like and love out there. So if you all enjoyed this and if you enjoyed this, I would love to do more of
That's the
good
big thing
ones.
is see if people really
people
dug
like it,
this.
yeah.
Yeah, because I know the Creep TV and stuff, people like it, some people It's like this one I feel like it can be more applicable to also if you're driving your car.
Yeah, it's like this is a Creepcast episode. You can just sit there and listen to it and
So,
you get the same effect.
I
Yeah.
think it's cool. Well, yeah. Without further ado, everybody, that was our SCP-3000 episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Stay. SCP, secure, creep, protect,
Stay secured.
creeped, protected.
Stay
secure.
creep.
Stay protected.
Stay creep
Protect
freaks.
your creeps.